Welcome everyone. Let's just jump right into it. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely radical philosophy on system architecture. Look, in the tech world, we're constantly sold this dream of absolute perfection, right? Seamless integration, flawless execution, zero bugs, which, let's be honest, we all know is a total fantasy. You've stared at a frozen screen, you've dealt with a crashed app. Well, Mauricio Rizzicori totally flips this narrative on its head with his SYRAG ecosystem. He basically argues that trying to hide our system's flaws is the exact thing holding our technology back. So today, we're exploring how intentionally exposing those errors might actually be the ultimate key to evolution. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we're going to dismantle the flawless software myth. Then, we'll step inside the SYRAG ecosystem. After that, we'll examine two specific modules, SYRAG Lab and the Log Supervisor. Fifth, we'll uncover their shared evolutionary principle, and wrap up by looking at the broader compliance picture.
Section 1. The Flawless Software Myth. Time to uncover the real truth about friction.
Listen closely to this core philosophy. There is no software without errors. There is no system without friction. Just let that disarming truth settle in for a second. Actually, this isn't just some pessimistic observation. It's the absolute foundational philosophy of Rizzicori's entire approach. When we finally accept that friction is an unavoidable law of digital physics, we stop wasting our energy trying to fake perfection, and instead, we start designing systems that actually learn from their inevitable failures.
Section 2. Inside the SYRAG ecosystem. Let's take a look at two specific modules.
So, within SYRAG-OS, Rizzicori focuses on two distinct modules, SYRAG Lab and SYRAG Log Supervisor. Now, if you're an engineer or a system architect, at first glance these two modules seem completely unrelated. I mean, they do wildly different things. But, as you'll see, it's their underlying mindset that actually connects them.
Moving to Section 3, SYRAG Lab. This is where we talk about embracing imperfection in what I like to call the messy laboratory.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that, by definition, SYRAG Lab is not a polished product, not at all. It is a transparent laboratory. It's an experimental platform deliberately designed to expose its own weaknesses. It generates experiments, measures the results, and meticulously documents its own evolution. So rather than sweeping its bad results under the rug, it literally puts a massive spotlight on them. To pull this off, the lab tracks its evolution across cycles of critique using some highly specific metrics. First, it measures coherence, basically how well the system's logic holds together internally without contradicting itself. Then, it tracks ontological friction. Think of this as the gap between the system's internal model and the super messy reality it's actually trying to process. And of course, it measures bugs found per interaction. By actively tracking these data points across 10 full cycles of critique and correction, the system isn't failing when it finds a bug, it's learning. Every single fault becomes a crucial piece of data that accelerates its improvement.
And I want to emphasize here, this approach isn't just some theoretical thought experiment. It's backed by a real Zenoda publication. This research documents 10 complete cycles of critique, proving out in the real world that when every single fault acts as a data point, evolution accelerates big time.
All right, Section 4. Log Supervisor. Let's talk about exposing mistakes with a runtime watcher.
The SYRAG Supervisor is a runtime observability and governance system. It literally watches behavior and highlights faults exactly as they happen. Think about how traditional systems operate for a second. They often ignore warnings, hide anomalies, or suppress alert logs just to keep the dashboard looking nice and green for the executives, right? Well, this module does the exact opposite. It brings operational issues directly into the open. It absolutely refuses to pretend that nothing went wrong.
So let's compare them side by side. We have SYRAG Lab, our experimental research system, and SYRAG Log Supervisor, our runtime observability and governance system. I want to be perfectly clear here. These modules do not share code, they do not share responsibilities. They operate in entirely different domains. One is pure research, the other is real-time governance.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds to one shared evolutionary principle, the mathematical fact.
The invisible thread connecting these two systems is exactly this. Exposing errors creates a faster and better evolution. Rizzicori literally calls this a mathematical fact. This is the true systemic relationship that drives SYRAG-OS. The analogy between the two modules isn't about some similarity in their software design, it is entirely about a similarity in mindset. They both embody this exact same evolutionary logic.
The crucial ethos boils down to this. Both treat failure as a source of truth rather than a source of shame. Let that sink in. It's such a powerful repetition of the core ethos. In a tech culture that constantly penalizes mistakes, celebrating visible errors makes the next version stronger. Think about it. If you treat failure as shame, you hide it. If you treat it as truth, you learn from it, and you evolve.
Section 6. The broader compliance picture. Let's zoom out beyond the code to see how this scales.
These three themes brilliantly illustrate how that philosophy scales based on Rosari's broader writing. First up, AI reality. He argues that AI needs to stop performing certainty and start exposing reality, basically admitting what it doesn't know. Second, conscious data. This is the idea that data governance has to begin way before AI output, managing the friction right at the source. And third, compliance design. Embedding controls so deeply into the operating system that it makes traditional reactive audits completely obsolete. So treating errors as truth applies equally to AI transparency, data lifecycles, and global compliance.
What this all means is that we are fundamentally moving away from legacy behaviors. We have to stop hiding anomalies just to save face. We absolutely must move away from the black box AI problem, where we blindly trust algorithms without ever seeing their internal friction. And we've got to move away from traditional external audits that only look at a system after the damage is already done. The core takeaway from all of Rosari's work is simply this: we must stop pretending nothing goes wrong and start building systems that expose reality. I really want to leave you with this provocative final thought. Ask yourself right now about the projects you're working on. Is your system performing certainty, or is it exposing reality? Are you hiding the friction, or are you actually using it to evolve? It's a massive paradigm shift, and it completely changes how we think about digital architecture. Thank you so much for joining me today for this explainer into the SYRAG ecosystem. Keep questioning your systems, keep exposing those errors, and I'll catch you in the next one.